are you all doing this morning? Great, huh? I want to thank Ross and the organizers for bringing me here. It's my first time to Utrecht, and it's a really beautiful city. I'm actually still in kind of shock. So I'm going to talk this morning about building open source communities. Now, not just because it's fun to do that, but for good reasons. So we're all programmers here, right? Anyone not a programmer? Good. Can someone tell me what they consider to be the biggest problem in our industry? People, yeah, that's code of conduct violation right there. No. Now, I've been programming for, 30 years, and I've noticed that, it's fun to write code, and there's this kick about getting machines to do what we want, like we're in charge finally. But most of what we make gets thrown out. Quite quickly sometimes slowly, but mostly we make trash. I think still 80% of formal projects done by businesses are never delivered, never used. And that's not play, that is work. That means that most of what we're doing and what we're paid for doing, we take very seriously, is not worth anything to other people. I consider that to be a very big failure. And it's very unusual. If 80% of our buildings fell down, we would be in crisis. If most of our airplanes fell from the sky, it would be kind of dramatic. But our software projects, we'll just start again, right? So why is that, and how can we solve that? Anyone? No, okay. People don't know what their problem is. People think they know what the problem is. Thank you, sir. Wait. I have a present for you. So I'm also an author, and I make these things. And when someone gives such a great answer, voila. So we start writing code, and although we're almost always confident and sure of ourselves and full of inspiration and ideas, and we're well motivated, we have fast Wi-Fi, we have great espresso, we actually don't know what we're doing. We're trying to do a combination of research and imagination and best practice at the same time, and it's very hard. If you're building the same piece of software over and over again, if you're building an accounting system, that's okay. We know what the rules are for accounting. But if you're trying to build a new application, a new infrastructure, a new library, it's new and therefore it's unknown, and therefore by definition you have no clue when you start out, individually or as a team. Yet we deny that and we try to imagine ourselves into the future and then build that future, and it fails. Now there are reasons why it fails, but the best solution we found to this over years and years is to build a community and have the community do the thinking, and the community then builds a product. That appears to be the best solution. So what I will explain today is how to build a community and how this works. So who here is not doing anything in open source? Who is a complete closed source fanatic? Because that's what it is today. Closed source is fanatic, right? That's the religious belief, sorry. That's the mystical thinking. Open source is mainstream, open source is successful, open source works. We agree, right? Who here has started an open source project? Okay. Who has found that to be successful, easy, and straightforward? Okay. Right. So that's what I'll explain. I'll explain how to make that work. And I'll give this in the form of simple rules. The actual detail is extensive, and it's in that book, Chapter 2, of Culture and Empire. You can download that for free. You can also buy it online. You can buy the ebook, and you should. The actual detail is extensive, but I'll boil it down to simple points. The first point, and the most important, is you put people before code. And I learned this from a friend who was in the Apache Foundation. So he was saying, Pieter, we have this principle, people before code. And it hit me. This was a very good way of phrasing what I'd always try to do. The actual code you write, even as an engineer, a software engineer, is irrelevant. Now, it's useful, it's important, but it's secondary to the people in a project. And if you look at a library that you make or that you use, and I have this argument on Twitter quite often with people, and they're like, yes, but the work is finished. I'm like, yes, but no one is contributing. They're like, yes, but it's finished. I'm like, it's dead. There are no contributors. There are no patches. Therefore, it is dead. It's very hard to accept as an engineer. And yet, the software is secondary to the people who are making it, patching it, porting it, fixing the build systems on it, and so on. And everything you do as a founder of a community should be aimed at getting the people into your project and getting them happy and getting them productive. Number one rule. Anything that you do which puts people away, or turns people away, is going to hurt your project or kill it. And imagine a conference. And a conference which is in a strange city with no transport, with no cafes, with no nightlife, with hostile security guards at the borders, with €2,000 entrance fee and great speakers. It's not going to work, right? You get people in, and then the code will come. People before code. The next thing. Most of us work in companies. Most of us have meetings. Who here enjoys meetings? Oh, you terrible people. Sorry. Meetings are an interesting thing. I like this physics of people, physics of software. There's a thing called Amdahl's law. Amdahl's law is about scaling concurrent systems. When you try to get consensus between cores or people, you basically stop any parallel activity, and you force the system into a serial mode. And that serial mode limits the scalability. If you have 1 hour of meeting a day, then your maximum team size is 8 effective. If you add more people, they're wasted. If you have 2 hours of meetings a day or 2 hours of serial activity a day, your effective team size maximum is 4. This is pretty freaky. And the meetings are a symptom of trying to achieve consensus before you work in general. I mean, this is a meeting, but we're not agreeing on anything, right? We're not here planning our work or anything. We're just exchanging ideas. That's fine. Trying to achieve consensus before you work is very bad. We do this often. It's very, very expensive. It does not scale. So rule number 2 is make progress before you get consensus. You'll see this expressed in many different ways. It's easier to get forgiveness than to get permission. We see this on our mailing lists a lot. People trying to agree on what to do will spend days arguing over what might be a 5-minute patch. This happens all the time. So we have developed rules in our community, things like, okay, a pull request comes in, we merge the pull request. Do we do a code review? Maybe, we do it later. Do we argue the pull request? Do we argue the quality? Possibly, we do it later. People like arguing, that's fine. People have the right, we have the right to discuss. But if I see a process being blocked by discussion, I will simply force that. I will merge pull requests very aggressively. Pull requests that break master, I will merge them. And I teach my community to do this. I say, when you have people who contribute, the first thing you do is get them in. You get them in, and that means merging their pull requests, getting them their work accepted, and getting their vision of progress on the record. Now, if they're bad developers, if they're making a mistake, that's fine. It goes on the record. It's easy to fix. Second pull request, merge that too. There's no requirement to get consensus. Now, we have quite good rules about what is a good pull request, and they're used mostly to punish the people who are obsessively bad and don't correct themselves. Things like a pull request should be small. It should solve one problem. It should not import massive libraries from unknown sources. It should look nice. It should look like the rest of the code base. Follow the style guide. And yeah, those rules are useful, but they're not the criteria for merging. So who's made pull requests to projects? And who had the pull request merge within? Keep your hands up, please. If you had the pull request merge within 5 minutes, keep your hand up. Okay. So those of you who had it merge quickly, how did you feel? It was great, right? You jumped up with joy. You're like, yes, I am valued. And that emotional kick is what you want to give your contributors. And if they get it the first time and they know it's there, they're hooked and they will come back. And that level of commitment is what makes projects live or die. You remember that open source is competitive, it's like a sport, and you want the best people to be in your team, not best in terms of their insanely smart brains, best in terms of their character, ability to work with others, ability to see problems on a wide scale. And if they like your project and they like your process and they like the way that you treat them, they will come back and they will do more than just give you patches. They will also sell your product. They will talk about it in conferences. They will push it. Just from merging a pull request quickly. It's insane. And the other way around, if you put someone's pull request on hold and say, yes, we're going to do a code review next month. We have our monthly code review cycle, and you're number 25 in the list. We'll get to you possibly next month, maybe the month after. How do you feel? You feel rejected with good reason. And it's right away like, this project sucks. I would never use it. I will now actually lobby against that project. Right? Number 3, problems before solutions. Now, this is a subtle thing. This goes down to the whole concept of futures and how we estimate and how we plan and how we even understand what we're making. It's very tempting as engineers to design solutions. We have features, we have ideas. We've all done this. You have a meeting and you have these whiteboards and you write down your plans and your visions, right? And it's fantastic fun with little boxes and lines. And if you're very visual, then like me, you can make fantastic drawings. And you can sell them to clients for lots of money. That's the best part. And the clients ask you for planning and they ask for deliverables and you give everything a name and things connecting it all. And this all is rubbish. I call that trashware. Why? Because you're inventing at the same time as you're trying to design, and you're guessing at the real problems, and you're wrong by, it's like navigating with no compass. The further you go, the more wrong you are. When you sail your ship and you have no compass and no clock, and you're off by 1 degree, the further you sail, the more likely you are to fall off the edge of the world, right? Metaphorically speaking. So with software, once you understand that you have no compass and that you have no clock and that you're guessing, you learn to take very small steps. And you learn to check your steps every single time rather than making wild guesses and forcing that through just by courage or money. Small steps, mistakes. This is Murphy's Law now. We will make mistakes. And the best way we found is that you force every change to be scoped as a problem. You say, okay, you're sending us a patch. What's your problem? What problem are you solving? If the problem can't be expressed clearly or can be challenged, then you won't allow the patch. You take the patch out again. Lack of a feature is not a problem, right? What is this feature doing? What problem is it solving? You can call this what business value is it adding? Another way of expressing it. If you apply this very strictly, and we do, and I do in my projects, like the very first patch on the project will be, this project has no license. Okay, patch number 1, make a license. This project has no hello world. Patch number 2, make a hello world. This project has no README. Patch number 3, make a README. Right? And it sounds stupid, but as you go through this, you're actually explaining your scientific thinking process to your peers in your group, and they do the same thing, and you begin to see what people do and why they do it. And once you see why they do it, you can criticize what they do, and you can fix it, and you can improve, and you can engage. And the communication gets much, much easier. And it so happens that by allowing people to solve problems on the fly, you also remove the need for consensus. You don't have to sit down and agree. You don't need to. It's sufficient that someone says, I am using this product. I've identified a problem. I will make a solution. I will send you the patch. Problem, solution. You look at it, you see the problem statement, you merge it right away. If the problem is insane, I will merge it anyway, then I will just revert it. Yes. Because it's insane for 2 possible reasons. Either the person is wrong by mistake, which is the majority case. This happens a lot. In which case, you merge it out of goodwill and to give that person that kick. And if the person is actually a troll, which happens, then you merge it because I want that to be in the Git history forever on that project. There's going to be a decentralized, distributed record of someone's bad behavior. We get that too. But I don't want that on some random discussion somewhere. I want that in the code base. I want that in the history. Right? Okay, number 4. Contracts before internals. So, as you start building systems, what you realize is that the code you make is actually secondary. And the people are important. Between the people, you have contracts. It's like the city of Utrecht is built out of buildings, very pretty buildings, and these buildings all have contracts with the outside world. They all are attached to the ground, and they have pipes for water and pipes for sewage, and they have wires for fast Wi-Fi, and they have probably tubes for beer and probably tubes for espresso plugged into the city. I don't know how it works here. In my mind, that's how it is. Those contracts are great. No one cares what happens inside the house. This is a very, what happens in your home stays inside your home, in the city of Utrecht, I'm told. But the contracts are key, right? And this is the same with software systems. The actual code is very much secondary to the way it implements contracts. If you have a web server which implements HTTP and does it properly and doesn't crash and is fast, you don't care how it's implemented. You really don't care. I mean, maybe for fun you'll go and look at it as a way of learning, but it's not something that impacts you as a user. So as you build your community, also think in terms of contracts and think in terms of the space to implement competition rather than trying to agree. You don't have to have a single house. You can have many houses because building stuff in software is very cheap. Once you understand contracts and how they work, you can regulate your community in terms of contracts. You can tell people and teach people how to make pieces that implement contracts, how to compete on the basis of contracts, how to change contracts over time. And if you look at my writing, you'll see a lot of emphasis on contracts because it's very, very important for scaling. Okay. The license you use. Now we have all these license wars. We discuss licenses, blah, blah, blah. If I have, question for the audience, if I have a MIT BSD X11 project and I fork it and make a pull request, what license is that pull request under? Who thinks MIT BSD X11? Raise your hands. Who thinks LGPL3? Nobody could. What other license would there be on that pull request, on that patch? Sorry? Yes, pretty much. It's like you have no clue, in fact. This is a very big problem. It means if you're trying to use a consensus-free, sweet, fast pull request model, it's really a lovely way of working, and you have an MIT X11 liberal license, you can't deal with pull requests. You can't deal with them. If you merge those, you have put unknown copyright conditions into your software. One time, and you can kill your project. That's WTFL, really is. What's the solution? Well, the only one I know, there's two solutions. One is mediocre and one is okay. The mediocre solution is to ask every contributor to sign something or to agree on something or to state explicitly, I hereby relicense my patch under something. If you do that, what you're doing is creating administration. You're creating red tape. You're asking someone to check. You're adding a rule that anyone doing a merge must know this thing about checking. They must become a bit of a license lawyer, and they must check for invalid licenses. And if you make a mistake, by default, you get it wrong. And you may only see it 6 months later. And the person who made the patch may have gone. And you say, oh, dear sir, dear madam, I want to relicense your work, and there's no answer. What did you do? So that's not a very good answer. A much better answer is to use a share-alike license from the start, so that when you do a merge of a pull request, which is a fork of a project, the pull request, the patch, is automatically licensed with no requirement to ask anyone anything. What we've come down to in the Ethereum community is MPL version 2, which is quite a new license, and it effectively gives us what we want in our community, which is share alike on all patches without any company lawyers going crazy. Company legal people don't like GPL because they've been taught by Microsoft for so long that it's toxic, so they just have this red flag on GPL, unfortunately. MPL 2 has much the same effect. It has protection against patents, and it has share alike. So if you use MPL 2 as your license, and I'm sure there are others, but that's the one that we find is the simplest, then you can get people to send you patches, and you can merge them. I mean, you can delegate the act of merging to anyone. My daughter, who is 12, who should be here, but she was too lazy this morning. She's a maintainer on some projects, and she can merge. Why not? Doesn't require legal knowledge. So these kind of tricks remove barriers, and you should see these in action. You should see people stumbling, having to learn stuff that seems artificial, and you can remove these barriers. You can make it simpler. People will be able to move faster and happier. Okay, now I'll come to rules. So A license is a very important contract. A license tells people in a community how they can work together. It's a social contract for the community. But you need more than just a license. You need rules that tell people what style you're using for writing code. You need people to understand and be able to refer to the rules for a good patch. It's fine to say we'll merge everything, but there are rules for good patches. You want them to be written down. So I've developed for ZeroMQ over a period of time formal rules. And it's an RFC called C4, which you can look at. One of the first rules says that everybody has the right to become a contributor, for instance. Which is something we take for granted, but it's not stated in most projects. That this is open means that you have the right to be there, not just that you may, if we like you. No, no. In many projects, the core maintainers are the enemy of the community. And you yourself, as core maintainer, find yourself becoming enemy to your own community very, very easily. Why? Because someone else's competence threatens your position of power. So in many projects, the core maintainers carefully and secretly and by lack of any alternative take power, take their community, take what they like, reject what they don't like, and bolster their own power. Becomes toxic. So rule number one is anyone can join. Anyone has the same rights. Maintainers are not special. This has the advantage of letting you relax, turn your back, and trust your community. So it used to be I did a lot of the work in ZeroMQ, also programming and also managing it, and I don't anymore. I write what I like. If I'm here, if I'm doing something else, I'm writing a book, which, by the way, you should buy. Amazon.com, $25, very good. Also Kindle, $5. Yay. If I'm writing my book and it takes 6 months or a year, ZeroMQ community just carries on happily. Why? Because I'm not in a position of owning any power except the name, the brand, to stop other people calling their stuff ZeroMQ. Right? So the flatness of power, the fact that you have a meritocracy, where even your position as founder only gives you a certain ability to regulate when there's a conflict, doesn't give you any additional rights. This is very important. And people contributing, they understand that, they trust that. Every contributor has the same rights in terms of copyright, in terms of everything. That's very important. Okay. That's about it. We have time for questions. What I've said here is quite radical, because if you apply this, and this is what I've done in many cases. I'll come back to you, sir. You have priority rights here. Maybe we can get this gentleman a microphone already to get him ready. And if you apply this, it's not only for open source. Now, these techniques work for closed source just as well. You maybe have a smaller group of people who could be contributing. For example, the ability to fork any project, make a competing project, works internally as well. There are companies that work like this. GitHub, Amazon work like this internally. Open allocation. Very powerful technique. So they should be disturbing you somewhat. Gentlemen, sir.
Hi, Pieter. Welcome to Utrecht. I'm glad you enjoy it. Thanks for those rules, very insightful. I was wondering, you've given us some really great tips on how to build a community, how to make it alive and keep it alive. But you started by saying that 80% of all code is thrown away. Now, in my experience, many code is thrown away because it isn't what people wanted. It's not what the client wanted, it's not what the community wanted, it's not what the users wanted. And you haven't really discussed how do we make sure that this functioning community moves the project in a direction that is requested by the users. That's also what keeps projects alive.
Good question.
Doesn't that require some form of central control?
Okay, so this comes down to a slightly philosophical discussion about what it is to be intelligent and how we actually think as a species. So bear with me for a few seconds here. Now, we all think that we are individually intelligent. We believe that we are all gifted, right? Who is not gifted here in the audience? Right, thank you. It's like 80% of drivers are better than average, right? But in reality, and we all know this, in reality, we are like ants. We are ants. And we think as a super colony. Now, if you see a colony of ants exploring the landscape, very, very intelligent. The colony of ants can find the most efficient path to an object that it wants to eat and consume. And it will do it with minimum waste. And it will find this, whatever it is, this rotting fruit or this dead scorpion, whatever it's trying to eat. And it will then send all its available workers there and pick this stuff up and bring it back to its colony well protected from any intruders. So the ant as a superspecies is very, very clever. You can almost not design a better thinking machine. Individual ants are pretty stupid. However, if you can ask an ant individually, are you smart? The ant will be like, yes, of course I am. I have 6 legs, look at me. Right? I mean 6, count them. We're the same. And the thing about us is that it's our individual brilliance that drives us, like an ant is the same. Ants are driven by wanting to be better than other ants. But it's our ability to work together that makes us actually intelligent. The individual intelligence is a fraud. It's a sham. It's our ego pushing us on. It's not really effective. And in fact, if you just are by yourself, have you seen an ant by itself? How would you define an ant by itself? It's lost, essentially. An ant by itself is a lost ant. Ants can only think in terms of the groups of ants and the pheromone chains they follow on the ground. By itself, an ant is lost, and so by itself is a human lost. So, the community is this, not a colony, it's a temporary coalition of humans that are looking at certain problems. And what they're doing is they're taking small steps, just like ants. It's really not just an analogy, I'm giving you a physical equivalence almost here. Ants take small steps, and ants get lost, and they come back. And they make small mistakes, and the small mistakes are fine. That's how the ant colony learns. It makes mistakes. And it very, very quickly corrects from mistakes. Very quickly corrects from mistakes. You won't see the queen ant go down there and hunting. Right? The queen ant does not do that, because if she says to other ants, follow me, they all will follow her. And if she's wrong, end of colony. So the queen ant stays. Little workers run around. Workers are disposable. They make mistakes, they self-correct very quickly, and when they're on the right track, they amplify, they invest. And the right track quickly grows to the mainstream. So, embracing failure, not just as a thing that happens, but as a primary function of learning. Murphy's Law is not something exceptional. It's how you learn, is making mistakes. And it's fine to throw away a lot of your steps. In practice, you don't, because in practice, we actually see a little bit in front of us, but not very far. So we embrace failure, we make mistakes, we throw away stuff we don't need very quickly. We never ship it. It only goes through one cycle, and someone says, nah, and it gets taken out again. What remains, it's valid, until someone can challenge it. And you accumulate little valid answers to potentially valid problems, and what you get over time is more and more accurate software. You're accumulating small answers to small problems. There's no big leaps. And this is a mechanical, it's a mechanical process for thinking, right? Bizarre as it is. Does not require any real, genius in your brain. It requires the ability to take random steps in a problem space, test every solution against some reality, keep what is good and throw out what is bad. Basic science. And all life is science, and all life is problem solving. Karl Popper. So it's not a new model, but it's new in our business because we're so used to being super clever little ants. I'll throw away your ego. It'll help a lot. Next question, sir. The microphone is very good here. I like that.
Hi. Well, I thought the 80% thing would be about something else, because you lost me a little bit there. If you're talking about the 80%, I think you should have the analogy with production code. Because buildings and airplanes are production code. And that's why they don't fail, because our production code, most of the time is pretty good. So I think the analogy wasn't that good.
80% of software projects that are formally budgeted and staffed and run by somebody and have clients paying for that are failures. Okay? That's to say, it's not just production that you actually get stuff that works. It's as if you have 80% of construction projects falling down. Right? Collapsing. Buildings collapsing. Of course, the ones that stand up and survive will be lived in and will be beautiful. It's fine. You have success. If you throw enough money at anything, you can always get some success. But in our industry, the dominant model is one of massive failure. Now, the failure can be defined in many ways. Sometimes it's illusionary. Sometimes projects are delivered on time, on budget, they meet all specifications, and then they're never used. Sometimes they can be late, over budget, but actually profitable and useful. So it's difficult to always measure accurately, and this figure may be off. It may be off. But it remains that our main model of organization is to centralize, to try to push people towards a goal, to throw money at that goal, without actually having any proof that that goal is valid. It's based on a hunch of somebody with power and money and influence, and people go into that because we like money and power and influence, and we follow that. We're hooked into that. We follow the queen bees around, and we get lost. It's a dominant model. It's not just a marginal model. It's still a dominant model, and that's the problem. If the dominant model was organic, iterative, basic economics and science, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't care what I'm talking about. You'd be like, yeah, shut up, go away. I hope. I think you were first, sir.
Hi, about the pull request and the fact of merging. Don't you think that is a communication problem, the fact that a person can actually perceive the review as an evaluation of the code? Because personally in my company we have a very open source like model internally, and the review is actually a learning process that helps, for example, new starter getting started on a project. It helps younger developers to actually improve, and
right.
It's a peer process. It's not a evaluation with valued problem.
So it's funny that you're the one that mentions that and takes that as a kind of that a review could be a critique. What I was talking about was just the time and the latency, nothing more. But of course, when someone decides to look at our work and do this slowly, we take it as an insult. Automatically. It's hurtful to be told, stop, I need to check what you're doing before you carry on. It's also very useful. So the thing is that being corrected is very nice. However, having that getting in the way of someone actually using your work is very hurtful. So the trick is to get these two to work together. What you do basically is you do the code review out of band, asynchronously. Right? Imagine that you were editing, we all know this. This is Wikipedia. So all I'm doing is this is a cheap trick. I'm taking Wikipedia. It's been done by other people, and I'm just reformatting it for you in terms of code. That's all I'm doing here. Now, Wikipedia, if you make an edit on a page, you see something wrong on the page, and you're like, oh, this is wrong. I want to fix this. And you send your fix, and someone says, oh, I'm going to review your fix. And you're like, well, who is this person? Why do they have status over me to review my fix? Who owns this work in the end? Oh, my goodness. Everything goes wrong. You say, by default, you save, and you've modified that page. It goes live right away. Now, anyone else can come along and take away your modification, change it, and it's the same way, it goes right away. So if you change a page which is being heavily edited, your edit will last about 30 seconds. That's fine. You got there, it gets out again, that's fine. So it turns out to be much healthier and much more fun to have a poor quality patch pushed onto master, merged, and then criticized and corrected by other patches or by discussion out of band than to have it waiting in a queue somewhere. The waiting in a queue, first of all, creates a kind of power differential between the contributor and the maintainers. And secondly, it slows things down. It slows things down. And if you look at your little ants making mistakes, and you realize that every ant is taking steps into the unknown, and ants are getting it wrong all the time. If every single step has to be double-checked by other ants, what are you doing? Right? You're slowing things down to the point of not functioning anymore. It'll work, but it's not competitive. So you allow the ants to make mistakes, and we're the ants. It's not derogatory. You allow us to make mistakes. Embrace the mistakes as being valid efforts. Don't treat them as a failure. Treat them as an investment. And encourage people to learn and fix their own mistakes and self-correct. And only if they cannot do that, or if they actually ask for help. And as a matter of teaching, here, look, here's our style guide. Look at the code. You can do this better. I will show you. I will make a new patch. Ah, that's fantastic. So we do, in our community, we tend to do code review by just sending new patches and fixing up code. And people who care will look at the new patches and they'll be like, ah, that's better. I can do it like that. What we do not do, what I do not do, when people do it, I tend to stop them, is go through someone's code and say, that's wrong, that could be like this is no good, that can like that. It's just nasty. It's just nasty. From my point of view. And if I don't like something, I tend to take that quite seriously as an indicator that other people won't like it either. Right? Although what I will do in practice is put my own feelings aside and wait for someone else to have the same feelings, and then I will say, okay, I've seen this effect now 3 or 4 times, now I take it seriously. Who here plays music? Who's a musician? Okay, who jams? You go out, you jam. Do you like when you're jamming, someone stopping and saying, hey, you know, you're a bit too loud. Could you just like, just everyone, shh. Could you just like, please stop and just a little bit, do you like that? It's really humiliating. It's like, okay, take your drums and go away. It's like, you don't do that. What you do is you let the musician play too loudly. You look at them a little bit now and then, you play a little bit softer, you play a bit louder and get them to realize that they're overdoing it. And if they don't, then next time you're like, nah. And a good musician self-corrects all the time. That's part of the process. It's how you learn, is to learn to self-correct. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Why don't you let anybody just commit to master directly instead of a pull request? Just let them commit directly.
It turns out that having at least 2 people involved in every single act, let's just say a pull request and a merge, is fun. And it turns out that committing to your own code is very lonely, you don't get feedback, and you don't know if you are right or wrong. So it's a little bit like a heartbeat, a ping-ping. When you send a pull request and someone merges it, and I've tested this like 100 times, I'm convinced of this, and I know this from my own work, I've asked people over and over again, if you send a pull request and somebody says merge, it feels good. It feels good. It's human contact. You right away, you realize that you're in a group of at least 2 or 3 people, because you have yourself, you have the merger, and you have the user, and you have possibly the founder, 4 people, and you feel good. If you're merging your own work, if you're committing right to it to master, you feel lonely, you feel uncertain, you start making mistakes, and no one is there to stop you. And that it's a little bit of ping pong, but it turns out to be very, very satisfactory. And I've seen this over and over and over again to know this is true. And I will even do this when I make a new project. I will start committing stuff because I'm just doing stuff, and I will use pull requests. I'll merge my pull requests, and I'll be like, okay, guys, I want a second maintainer. Ladies, please, somebody come and join me. And someone will be like, okay, and I'll just, oh, thank you. And they'll just merge my work. And that right away is a relief. And I have somebody reviewing my stuff, and even if it's symbolic, it feels real enough to be worth it. And a lot of what we do has to be emotionally accurate. You have to feel your emotions. You have to understand the feelings you have when you contribute, or when you are trying to contribute, or when you have people who are doing stuff. And those feelings tell you a lot about what's healthy and unhealthy. And you know, a lot of us are kind of beaten into accepting all kinds of situations. And we just taught to ignore what we feel. But honestly, listen to your feelings, and they will often tell you what's good and bad in your work. And it turns out that's just, it feels good. It's like being patted on the back every time. Yeah. I know it's symbolic, but it feels fantastic, you know?
Thanks.
So I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and the things with the open source make perfect sense. Like, for example, I saw a plugin, it didn't have any like automated tests. I created like a proof of concept. It was still like, hadn't even tidied up the commit message, and this guy said, this is great, just merge it in straight away. But I work at a company, and the code, one of the particular projects, the code is a bit of a mess, because in the past I've been a bit apathetic about these massive pull requests, and now I'm being really militant and, you know, critiquing it. And I'm thinking back about what you said, and it's like, how can I better approach this? And it's like, I think, you know, when I critique someone's code at work, I feel like I'm being a bit harsh on them, but later on they'll say to me at the pub, it's like, I'm really glad you pointed that out to me. And I'm wondering if it's different if you work with the person side by side, because they know you're not being nasty.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things. First of all, if you have a project with a history of problems, it's difficult to fix them just like that. It takes time. And sometimes you can't fix them. Sometimes a code base has to be thrown out. And in fact, that's okay. Like I said, contracts are more important than implementations. The code base implements contracts. If it doesn't, then you are in real trouble. If your code base has a fuzzy, undocumented interface outside the world, then you can't throw it away. And if it's corrupt in any way, then your whole system is going to be corrupt. If it's clean contracts, you can throw away the code base, you can start again. Number one. Number two, if you are making small pull requests, and I really tell people small pull requests, then you fix the quality in real time. It's the way it works. Someone sends a pull request with 20 lines of code, and someone sees that, and you right away see what the problems are in those 20 lines of code. You fix them right away. Look, I'll go through libraries that I write, that I'm the main author of. I'll look through it randomly, and I will see code, and I'm like, aha, I didn't write that code. I can see right away. And I'll fix it up, send a pull request. I don't break anything. All the tests pass. It's fun for me, and the person who did it didn't have any kind of rejection or any need to. If they look at the code again, they will see it's been changed, and they should adopt the culture. And if they don't, I don't really want to teach them. The thing is, the people that I want to recruit, they are sponges for learning good ways of doing things. They learn because they're obsessive by being better. It's like, there's a style guide. I'll point them to it. But they should be able to pick up the style by reading the code and doing the same. That's what I want. That's my filter. Right? In a company, you don't have that much freedom. So you do, and people will accept a different level of pain and obedience and authority because they're paid for that, which I find slightly disturbing, but okay. Not necessarily healthy. But that's what they're expecting. So let's not break expectations too far. Some regular forced education about style and about quality of writing and so on is okay in a company. But I would still say small pull requests on any project and the freedom to go to any project and fix things is very important. The little silos of developers, like 2 or 3 here and 2 or 3 there, is very bad because they're using their other person's work, but they can't fix it. And ideally what you want is a market of projects in a company or outside a company. You remember Amazon. So Amazon have this, Amazon are making money, which is kind of bizarre. I like Amazon. They seem to be very good at guessing what I need next. There was a time when Jeff Bezos told his teams, okay, your internal APIs, you will all make internal APIs, and you will all have them at a state where they can be made public at any point in time. It's kind of freaky, right? But out of that came things like, all Amazon cloud services came out of this dogma that internally the projects would have APIs that were usable by the public as well as by their internal users. And anyone in Amazon can go and work on any project. Well, not entirely, but kind of theoretically. GitHub does that very much. GitHub is completely open allocation. So if you don't like some code, you go there and fix it. No one will stop you. So this is not common inside businesses because businesses are mostly based around power and control and money, even small companies, and the ego of the CEO and the ego of the investors and the ego of the middle managers. But some businesses have succeeded in removing that ego and in working around this model of kind of open collaboration and collective intelligence, and it seems to be very, very, very efficient if you can get there. Again, look at GitHub. Who is not using GitHub? That speaks for itself. GitHub had no VCs until recently. They didn't need them. No investors, just only investors, no VCs. They had no management until recently. And yet what they make is so spot on. It's so accurate. It's so accurate that it's almost like they came from the future and looked at what we're doing and saying, now, this is what we're going to make for you. But they didn't. They just made it in real time over years, using it themselves and fixing small things and making small incremental things. And GitHub has shown the success of this straightforward pull request merge model. Organic changes. The product is very simple to use. It's very accurate. It has almost no fat. We used to use Jira. Laughs from the crowd. Exactly. We used to use Jira, and I went back to Jira, and I'm like, holy smokes. This stuff has gone amazingly crazy. It's like everything is in there. It's like, guys, your competitor is the GitHub issue tracker. No more or less. And that's like 2 screens. 2 screens. And it's even a little bit too complex for me still. And adding more features will not make you beat GitHub. simplicity is very, very difficult to do. And this process of very organic, very competitive micro improvements based on real problems and the brutal removal of anything which is extraneous to that. Any unnecessary code has to die. It must die. It must get out of there. And the thing is that that pull request that kills code is as welcome as pull request that makes code. It's more welcome, right? And that's how you don't get in situations of, well, Jira, I'm very sorry, Atlassian, you're a great company, but the stuff you make is horrible. I'm sorry. Okay. We have no more time left, I'm sorry. So thank you all very much for your questions and for being here. And a big round of applause for all of you, the organizers. Thank you.